Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Gate Expectations Yu-Gi-Oh! Podcast. Welcome, everybody, to the Gate Expectations Podcast, where I bring in a weekly guest to talk all things Yu-Gi-Oh! And get to know a little more about each person I talk to. It's the only Yu-Gi-Oh! Podcast that is run by a full-fledged journalist such as myself. This is episode 45. Welcome to season 3. If you haven't checked it out yet, you can check out earlier podcasts with guests like Crush Cards, Ruggles, Yassine, Pack, Distant Coder, and many more. My guest for this week loves his numbers. His YouTube channel does in-depth statistic analyses of a wide variety of Yu-Gi-Oh! Topics and recently topped the Remote Duel YCS with Cyber Dragons. It's HakunaMyData. Man, thank you so much for coming on to my podcast.
Oh, yeah, no, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So a big reason why I wanted to bring you on was, first of all, your congratulations on the top of the Remote Duel YCS, by the way. Good job on that one.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been wild. For sure. It's been crazy.
Yeah, definitely that. And then number two, you specialize in an area of Yu-Gi-Oh! That I've yet to touch on my podcast, and it's something I personally love. It's data and statistics, and I'm a sports broadcaster as well, and I use a lot of stats to kind of help tell the story whenever I'm like being introduced to like two teams I have yet to be like I don't know or anything like that. So using stats is a great way to tell the story, and I can kind of form like a little bit of a narrative for it and kind of give like a story a little bit of extra pep. So that's one thing why I've been drawn to your channel so much. So I got to ask you, like, how did the stats on your YouTube channel kind of start out?
Yeah, no, that's certainly a great question. I mean, it's kind of interesting though. So when I first started a YouTube channel, which just a couple days ago I hit like my 1 year anniversary, I had ideas for some data related videos, but realistically speaking, I initially started just to provide some Cyber Dragon content, like in terms of tips and rulings. And I really didn't expect to be on YouTube for that long. I only had ideas for a few videos, and I thought that would be it. And the reason, of course, my channel has data in it and it's a pun, and you would think that was why I dedicated this channel to be a data related content, but it really wasn't. Actually, the way that came out was that was my Reddit username, which I had well before starting a channel, or even rather well before even playing Yu-Gi-Oh! It was not actually related to Yu-Gi-Oh! It was just something pun because I work in data related field, which I'll get to. So because of that, it kind of worked out where, I might as well make database content. So I guess, in terms of my line of work, I guess to do a quick background. So I did my master's degree in epidemiology, which is probably a word a lot of people have heard during the pandemic. You see a lot of epidemiologists on the news, giving advice and kind of things like that. And so basically epidemiology, it's the field where you study disease and health trends in a population, primarily using statistics. And I want to be clear, I'm not a doctor. The ones you see on the news and everything, they're usually physicians with a background in epidemiology. And so not all epidemiologists are doctors, and not all doctors are epidemiologists. So anyways, because of that, I felt, I have skills in, I use SAS personally in terms of analyzing data. So the first data related video I actually made was with Cyber Dragons. I made a code to simulate my opening hands 100,000 times. And within each iteration, it would see if it could bring out Infinity, for example, and Dragoon eventually when that got released. And because that meant I had to outline all the combination of cards that would lead to that. And so it was a little more complicated than that. It was like that plus like how many hand traps or going second cards I had. And it would categorize a hand as like good, bad, great, or terrible, for example. And so that was like the first data related video. At the time, of course, I only had probably like 50 subscribers. So the video never got any traction, not to mention. And it's sort of tough when you first start a channel, right? Like you have to find this balance where you want to produce some interesting content to get your channel started, but you also want to save that interesting video until you get a little bigger so that it would actually gain traction. And that's what I felt was pretty hard. And I never really touched that kind of video again after, because it was quite time consuming and it just never really got the results anyways. And yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, but I guess in general, yes, it is my line of work. It's my training. I do work in data related field. I work, I guess I'll keep it vague, like a government organization, analyzing data right now related to cancer. And so, yeah, I just try to apply that skill with Yugioh. I mean, it's certainly fun. And I felt that, it certainly wasn't really touched on. And I felt that there were some publicly available data sources that could be used. I mean, I primarily use YGOScope. So that's, I would say. And then, of course, the LCS came along, and one day I was just eating breakfast and I'm like, oh, you know what? Like, they posted deck lists. Like, why not just make some kind of like descriptive overview of some of the hand traps and staples? So it's just like, because I'm so new to YouTube, and this is something I do on the side for fun, of course, aside from working full time. So, these like ideas just come randomly, and you have to start. I would say one of the hardest things about with a YouTube channel when you start out is having an idea of which videos to make, and you ideally want to come up with an idea that can become a series, so you don't have to keep thinking of a completely new video idea each time. And so that's where I think the data videos help. For example, meta-analyses, I do that of the top ranked players on Dueling Book, and that's something people wouldn't mind seeing every month because the meta does change. For example, SEMO's meta-analysis is essentially like the prime example where everyone will see it every month, right? And it helps. So yeah, that's sort of how it got kind of how the channel actually started forming an identity. I would say it was from there.
Well, what I love about how you do your channel is it's the same way that I do mine. Like, both of us are professionals in our field. Like, you do data professionally, I do journalism professionally, and that's how we implement it, like, in a professional sense into our YouTube channels, which is what I love, because, like, you're getting it from an actual trusted professional. You just get it in a form that you would never expect that you would be able to see, which makes us so unique, separating us from a lot of other people, for one thing. And then, just a fun little anecdote, I also have one friend who kind of does something very similar with you. He works with the government and does he does a lot of data entry. But, like, for the longest time that I've known him, like, I think for like 5-6 years, I never got like a real answer of what he does. So we always just joked as him that he was a spy, just because he worked for the government. So we just had that little joke. But I found out eventually that he does data entry, in a sense, working with statistics and whatnot. Not saying you do data entry, but it's pretty much kind of it's kind of the same concept. That's basically what you do, in a sense, and you both of you do it quite professionally. So fun little anecdote there. But I love that you have this is part of your gimmick now, your shtick, your spiel, that you're able to use data, because it's something that has really become prevalent in the last, like, several years of the game now, where, like, deck building has become so much more important, especially with the game kind of transforming into being dictated really on the first turn. So we really need those numbers to figure out how consistent can we make a deck to be able to go to be able to pop on the first turn, because, like, everyone's all about putting almost all of your cards on the table, like, first turn, and just hoping your opponent can't, like, really beat out of it. And then your channel really helps with, I believe, like, showing those kinds of numbers to really help with all the deck building now, because you see it a lot in a lot of YouTubers where they tell you about, oh, we should be running like 3 copies of this, or like 2 copies of this, or like, and whatnot, and they say numbers a lot, and that's just something that just really surfaced over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in terms of my videos, though, I think the only thing that can really perhaps help with deck building is just like the LCS hand trap and staple, just like so people have a general sense of which ones were the most popular among, like, kind of players that were doing really well. I would say in terms of actual deck building probability, that's not something I really do. I mean, I don't know if you know of Yishan. He has a YouTube channel. He does that. He's definitely, clearly much better at, like, the actual math probability side of things than I
Yeah.
ever would be. I'm more of using whatever, data sources available, and providing more of like a descriptive overview of what's happening currently. That's sort of what I'm doing. And one of the harder parts too is because you have to think of your audience, you do have to make it simple. So that's sort of, I try my best with that. So I would say all my analysis, they are simple, really. They're just descriptive stats in nature. I mean, of course, in the back end, for me to set up the data, it does require quite a bit of coding, but in the actual end result, it is quite simple in the end. And that's sort of how it is in my line of work. Usually, like, the actual analysis part, for example, in terms of getting whatever percentage, that's the easy part. The harder part is actually, like, setting up the data for analysis.
And that's also something that is also important in my line of work. We call it, like, I think it's like data journalism. Is what we call it, where we basically, when we look at data, and then we can formulate questions on, on the kind of data we get. Like, for example, if we kind of use like the pandemic, for example, where if I were doing a story on it and I saw that there was a whole bunch of cases in, let's say, my hometown, and then say it's not prevalent in your hometown, well, then that's an easy question that I could ask. Is like, okay, why is like COVID numbers so prevalent in my hometown of Peterborough? Like, just as an example of it. So so this kind of data is really important for myself too, just in everyday life, and it definitely is for Yugioh too. And going back to what you said, you use like a YGOScope a lot. It's a website that some people like kind of know, but not everybody does know it. Can you explain what YGOScope is a little bit more?
Yeah, I know it's true. Like I certainly found out through I think some random Reddit post a while back, and that's the only reason I found out. Basically, I don't know how they're partnered with Dueling Book. I really don't know the relationship at all, but it essentially the homepage would give you like the most played decks at the current moment, their win percentage. But the best part is you can search user names basically, and then it shows you their last 20 publicly available replays. So basically, what I sort of discovered and what I decided to do was, well, the usernames for top 200 ranked players on Dueling Book are publicly available, and so then that means I can use that to search those top players and then look through their replays and provide these sort of, and I do a variety of things like meta-analysis of what the top ranked players are playing in terms of just any deck, and then I do a specific one to rogue decks in terms of what the top decks. Well, I guess that kind of gives it away. What rogue decks are these top ranked players are playing? And then sometimes I do more deck specific analysis where I look through all the usernames and just collect the ones that are playing a specific deck. Like, for example, I just recently did one on Sky Striker. So I would say it's a great site. I'm very grateful that it exists. Although, of course, a lot of people don't like that it exists because, for example, when you're playing ranked matches on Dueling Book, I think some players do actually try to you scope them out in terms of you try to see what they're playing before you like continue with your match. And of course, that's not the greatest. But I would say one thing I wish you could do on YGOScope is if you could actually just search by deck rather than only by username, because then that would make my job way easier, right? Because I can actually just search for that specific deck, and it doesn't have to be restricted to just top players, although ideally you still want to restrict it to decent level players and not completely new players that are new to the game. But yeah, for now, I think it does seem like you can only search by username. I did reach out to them way back, like the people that are on the contacts, to see if there's any additional data that I could potentially get in terms of collaboration, but I never heard back. So yeah, but it's a great site, and it's certainly a big part of the channel.
Okay. So in talking about all data and how important it is, what could we use Yugioh data that you provide? Like, how could I apply all this data that you're providing into into getting better at the game?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure about getting better. I mean, all in all, like one key limitation with what I do and just what anyone could realistically do is that, we are dealing with very small sample sizes because I am having to manually go through these replays. And, like ideally, for example, let's say for me in a public health field, like you're dealing with thousands, sometimes millions of data points, and you're just not going to be able to do that even when you have multiple people try to help you with replays, in which case then that actually brings a question of standardization because some people may record things differently and there's issues with that. So that's one aspect. One thing, for example, in terms of my monthly meta analysis is, I'm providing what these top ranked players are playing, and something I usually try to release them before a big event like a YCS or an LCS, for example. And I do find recently it has actually been a pretty good predictor in terms of what the actual breakdown ends up being in those events. For example, in the one just before the YCS, I found a really big amount of Tri Brigade, and I thought it would actually be a lot more Drytron, for example. But then you look at the YCS distribution, and it really was like a lot of Tri Brigade. And I mean, some may say, well, that's pretty obvious. And, it may be true. I'm just saying that it's been pretty accurate, I would say. For example, like Ignister being among some of the top, at least somewhat played among the top players. And then we saw at I forget if it was the LCS or some event. And then, you saw some Ignister do well as well, or at the very least show up quite a lot despite not being seen any play, right? And so I think that's sort of nice. And I think, like I said earlier, the LCS hand trap video, it does give you at least a good sense of good the hand traps that were popular. So I'll give you an example. At one point, Infinite Impermanence was always among like the top 5 most played. And then in one LCS, it just completely dropped. And that's when people realized, like it was bad against Virtual World. It was bad against Eldritch. Like at that point it was just not good because we no longer had, this was I think right after it was very good when Infernoble and Dragon Link were tier 1 and you just needed all the hand traps you could get. But after that format, it really wasn't very good. And when I saw that completely disappear, I remember asking someone like Pac, like, oh, like, is there like a reason for this? And he would tell me why. And I was like, oh, okay, like that's actually pretty helpful. Now I know that perhaps I should take it out for now for this format.
Do you do any other collaborations with other people in helping you assemble all of the data that you collect?
So I don't. I actually had some generous offers from some commenters in terms of like, oh, do you need more help in terms of like manpower, collect the data? But like I said earlier, that brings a question of standardization into question, and I want to make sure that I do it consistently, and I'm pretty thorough in terms of data quality. So, and I also don't want to put that burden on anyone else. Like, to be honest with you, I think once they kind of start doing it, they'll realize how tedious and time consuming it is. And yeah, I wouldn't want to really put that on to someone. And for now, I think I'm fine with like doing it myself. Although it of course does mean, it is limited. So for example, I would say the longest ones that take me in terms of data videos are the deck specific ones, because it means I actually have to watch the replays in very detail. Whereas the meta analysis, realistically, I just need to know, whether they won the die roll or not, which happens right at the beginning of dueling book match. And then just to confirm that the deck they're playing is what is automatically flagged by YGOScope, because sometimes it's not accurate. So but either way, like all of them, they do take quite a while. Especially, I don't know if it's just my computer, but I find YGOScope to be pretty slow compared to other pages. So it takes a while for it to like find the username or like load the username and then you click it. But yeah, so I hope that answers the question.
I mean, I've typed my name in it several times before just for fun, and even though I have like only 1 gigabyte speed internet, it certainly does take a while to
okay, so it's not just me. Yeah, okay, that's good to hear. Yeah, it's rather annoying, but yeah.
No, so I can understand on that front where like it can be like a little bit like tiresome and annoying, especially when I'm like trying to upload a video, like or export a video on my computer because it's eating up so much RAM, and then I'm trying to do work at the same time. It gets problematic.
Yeah,
so I kind of get what you're saying.
Exactly. So imagine trying to look up 100 separate usernames, which is what I have to do, right? So
yeah,
it takes a long time. It's like you search, it has to load the username, you have to find it, and then it loads. And if you like accidentally made a typo in their usernames, which is very likely because some people have some of the craziest DB usernames. And then you just like start all over. So that's my life.
I mean, some people might like, if they try to look up Simo's name, they might forget like how many O's are there in Simo. I know it's 8, and talking to him, it's 8.
I remember that.
A lot of people might have some problems figuring that out. So yeah, a lot of usernames are really tough, and there's no kind of like autocorrect or anything because of all the funny names that can be out there. So I can understand being troublesome. When I look at your channel there, I love like all the variety of like analyses that you do with it, like, and you have like such really great ideas. Like for example, when you put like how often do you win when you put Winda out? Same thing with the Dragoon. And again, as you said, one of your more recent videos is when you do like how many times you resolve Engage, because like when Engage got off the list, it's like, okay, well that's going to make Sky Strikers like one of the top decks again, because that's such a disgustingly broken card. So like, where do you get these kinds of ideas to do these kind of deck or card analyses?
Yeah, I mean, it just, I try my best to brainstorm certain ideas, and then it comes and goes. I mean, technically by concept, things like Dragoon, you mentioned, I mean, Winda, Sky Striker, that follows the same concept as what I would call as like a deck specific analysis. So it's still the same idea. So it's not like new. It's more like, okay, I want to have one thing that's sort of would catch people's interest. So for example, with the Sky Striker, the title was, how many times can you resolve Engage in a game? But the actual video has a lot more than just Engage, right? It has, win percentage with Mystic Mine, or when your opponent flips Imperial Order. So it has a lot more than that. But it all in all, it still follows as a deck specific analysis. So that's one idea. Another would be my meta analysis. Another would be like rogue analysis, the LCS hand trap and staples. And then we have some other kind of random other data videos that I've been exploring. For example, I did one on sort of more like a price history of some of the ultimate rares in the past year during the pandemic. That one did not do as it honestly did quite poorly, and I could totally understand. I was just like trying to venture out. You want to try something new. But some of the thing that I'm being very cautious with is if a certain new video idea does not do well, I actually make sure to not do something like that again back to back. Like I want to go back to something safe, try again. So, it's funny. So, for example, my meta-analysis videos generally do decently well now, but I actually, people won't know this. I actually did the exact same thing really early days of my channel, but it was called, the video was actually called, how much does winning like the die roll matter? So it was framed differently and it did not do well at all. And it took a while, so I put it aside and then I decided to do it again. But instead, I figured, well, you know what? Why not just make it focus on, what are the top players playing? Because that's exactly what that other video is about, except it was just framed differently, right? So that certainly, I guess, makes a difference. And of course, I did have a bit more subscriber base than when I first did that video. But yeah, that's sort of things I've come to learn.
And that video was, it was such an intriguing title too, because we've had so many like complaints about so many players saying, oh, this is just a die roll format, like, well, I would have, like, if he run the die roll, so I would have won if I won it. And you get a lot of like complaints about that. So it seems like a really interesting topic to really touch on now. And then, as you mentioned, like the following that you have now, it's a much bigger, so you'd figure, of course, you get a lot more views. It's kind of like, early on in my podcast, I already bring out like so many big names, and then maybe what would happen if I brought them in a little bit later. So it's, and speaking of that, do you ever look at your own like YouTube analytics and kind of gauge like when is the best time to put up certain videos, like when and like what time of the day, or what day of the week and whatnot?
Yeah, I was just thinking that other day. Well, so I typically post mine in the morning. I have it scheduled, like I'll finish at the night and I'll just have it scheduled for the next morning, usually like 10:30, 11. And I don't know how like much it matters. I mean, for example, I just look at the analytics and it says, okay, it shows that little graph and it like shows like the darkest color where people are mostly active. And it said my subscribers are actually mostly active from like 10:30 a.m. to like, I guess probably like 1 p.m. or something like that. So I'm like, okay, you know what? Maybe that means I need to post it at like, in the morning. But I've had instances where I wanted to get a video out really fast, so I would post it at like 9 p.m. But it honestly did the same, I feel like. And it's funny, in analytics, it used to be, they used to have this like little text box that would pop up that would tell you that, when you post, typically doesn't actually have an effect on the long-term results of your video. It may at the start, but over the long course, it would actually end up being the same. But I don't see that text box pop up anymore. And I feel like, I don't know how true that is. I would say how your video does at the beginning really does matter, because that's like typically your, best performing day, like when it first comes out, and then it probably starts recommending to other people. But yeah, I find the YouTube algorithm, I don't think, unless you actually work on the algorithm at YouTube, I don't think people will truly know. It's the same thing with Google's search algorithm. We can make guesses at it. I don't know how much I can game it. I just try to be consistent, like in terms of the morning, and it sort of works out. And I also don't like posting at night, because I don't like going to bed right after posting a video, because I may have a bunch of comments, or maybe, who knows, maybe I made some mistake and I have to correct it. And that's like my worst nightmare. So I generally don't like posting at night unless I have at least a few hours for it to like run and I realize there's no issues and it's just going to be comments saying, oh yeah, okay, cool video or something, but not like questions that I can't respond to.
Oh, I'm kind of like the opposite, where I like to post it at night, where a lot of people kind of settle down at that point, and then I can go to sleep, and then I wake up. It's like, oh, I got like 3-4 comments on that. I wonder what they are. It's kind of like a nice little like basket of comments that come right in front of you. It's like, oh yay! But again, I can kind of see why, because you have to be a lot more precise and a lot more accurate. So like any kind of error that you would make could be like quite critical on your end if you do it. Supposed to be where it's like, well, like I can't really change the podcast at that point in time. I can just put like an editor's note or something like that. So I can make very easy switches.
Yeah, no, it's certainly true.
Is it now? This could be based on either data or like complete superstition to you, but like aside from like before you go to bed, are there any other times you just tend to stray away from on posting videos?
So for me, I don't think I would have an exact time, but I do avoid days where there's a big event. So for example, I had this video that came this morning. I had it already ready, probably like Saturday, I think at the latest. But the thing was, the LCS was happening, I believe, and also it was the extravaganza on the Sunday. And so, I participated in one extravaganza, and I know that if you're playing it, like you're just like playing like the entire day. And so I didn't want to post there. Perhaps it wouldn't make a difference, but I did post it just on the Monday. And yeah, I think it works. And I think now it depends too. Like, I think more people are going outside compared to before, especially when, I don't know about you, but like most of my audience is going to be from the US. We're from Canada, of course, but there's certainly, I think, more like we'll be outside more than we are. Like our restrictions are just starting to like lift and everything, right? So yeah,
because I've got some tips from one of my like YouTubing friends, and they tell me that they always look at the analytics, but they like to avoid, like, for example, Friday like to play, because that's kind of the time where after like a day's work, everybody wants to just go out and do something, like either go party, go be out with their friends or something like that. So they try to avoid doing it on Fridays, and they like posting on Mondays because that's the day where like everyone's kind of back to work, and after a day of work, they'll just kind of want to sit down, relax, unwind, decompress, because Monday, supposedly is one of like the worst days of the week. So people will do whatever they can to make themselves kind of like feel better or whatnot. It's like when you see in sports, we have like Monday Night Football. You might get like a Monday night feature one, like in the NBA, though, that kind of thing, where like you want to have like prime time games at those kinds of times, because that's the time where people really want to relax the most and watch and like do something to unwind, and that would be like the prime time for people to like watch like these like the great TV program in that kind of sense.
Yeah, for sure.
So and then keep going with your channel now. Like there's like a wide variety of other like data topics that you've done as well. Like you do like meta-analysis of like top ranked players, like again, as you mentioned, like rogue analyses, like again, you're encompassing like a wide variety of like these different topics that involve data. Like do you really think that you could ever really run out of ideas when it comes to like statistical analysis and data for your channel?
I would say so. I think like the deck specific analysis will probably be able to continue and still kind of seem as unique, because we're always going to have some kind of new tier 1 deck. But I do think that, my content will probably get a little repetitive at some point, right? Because it is like monthly meta-analysis, rogue analysis, like, and I don't know if LCS will continue when everything returns to like normal, quote unquote, with in-person events. I mean, one of the things that'd be nice is if the YCS would release like all the deck lists, for example, then I would be like, oh, okay, then I'll have content for days. But yeah, I mean, I would say like, for example, with the Remote Duel YCS, I have been collecting deck lists that have been like posted on YouTube or like Facebook or whatever, and I'm just gonna wait until the top 16 live stream happens. And if I'm sure some will release more deck lists within the next few days after that's over, and then I'll do like a hand trap stable breakdown on that. But yeah, who knows? Maybe that's how I have to go, because the downside of that is that I don't have every list, right? So I have to be very clear about that, because that kind of influence, which hand traps were most played, right? For example, like this is just purely hypothetical, but let's say in a world where Altergeist was tier 1 again, and they tend to play in perm, even let's say in a format where other decks are probably not playing in perm, they'll probably play it, right? So if I happen to have a lot of Altergeist lists that were posted online, then it's going to make it seem like Imperm was really popular, but really it was just because I just happen to have more Altergeist than other deck lists that they just did not post any deck profiles. Because like a lot of players, even when they top, they're like, they don't know people to go on YouTube channel, or they don't have some kind of presence, some like channel or whatever presence themselves to post their list, right? So a lot of them are going to go, unobserved for in instances. So yeah, but anyways, I am kind of excited for that. And it'd be nice if they just officially release the deck list. Make my job a lot easier. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe at some point, some people just can get tired of your content. They'll just get tired of the meta-analysis. And quite frankly, I'm not quite sure how long I can really sustain the channel either once everything comes back as well. I mean, it was nice though. This recent top definitely did help things out in terms of channel growth. So yeah, it's certainly motivating. So, but I think I have to see when everything comes back, because right now I've constantly been working from home, right? Which means I save on commute time. And, for example, I mean, the gym now opened up, so I'm going, but I used to work out in home, and then I'm not going to like social events right now and all those things. And of course, spending quality time with my girlfriend, like all that, once we get to like our normal swing of things, and you of course want to make time to play, Yu-Gi-Oh, right?
Yep,
And that's one
yep.
of the things I would say, I don't know about you, but that's like my biggest struggle since starting the channel is that, you know, I work full time, I make these videos on the side, and the data videos happen to take quite a while. You know, I want to spend time with my girlfriend, and then whatever free time I have, I just spend time playing with the deck that I only know how to play essentially at this point, Cyber Dragons. But ideally, you want to spend time learning all these top decks and actually play them, right? To tier 1, tier 2 decks. I just can't seem to make time for that. So that's why I thought, you know, it was a big knack on me, and that, you know, I didn't think I'd be able to like top a premier event because of that. But, you know, I guess sometimes it works out. I really did not have much time to play. I probably played like 4 to 7 ranked matches on Dueling Book with the list that I used before the YCS. And I'm like, all right, that's all I have for prepping. So, yeah. So it worked out.
You know, it's funny because I'm pretty much in the same boat as you are. You know, like I have a girlfriend in a long-term relationship where we've been together for almost 4 years, and then, you know, like a full-time career in myself as well, and then, you know, being able to like balance all that, you know, do content creation, and then being able to actually, like, you know, play Yu-Gi-Oh, and then enjoy like all my hobbies that are outside of Yu-Gi-Oh and my social life, especially since I'm an extrovert, so I love being around people. It really is like a tough act to balance, and I know that, you know, MST, you know, Tom Box, for example, I know that he's worked 40 hours in his, you know, his career, and then, you know, 40 hours on the YouTube channel, and that can get like really taxing at that point. Like, have you ever felt like any kind of like burnout in like during this past year that you've had your channel up, just because of everything that's kind of like been floating around and having to juggle everything?
So it's interesting. I mean, so for one, for me, I never sacrifice sleep, so I would never actually stay up late to do YouTube or anything. It's just like if I don't have time for that day, I just don't do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's just no video for whatever, a few days. But
Mm-hmm.
in terms of burnout, I wouldn't really call it a burnout, because it was more like I would certainly lose motivation to continue, because let's say I spend a lot of time on a video and it doesn't do well, and you start asking yourself like, man, like, should I just like quit, and then I actually have more time to play? Yeah, no, I've definitely gone through that a lot. I think that's pretty common on your small channel. I mean, I'm pretty sure I had those thoughts since like my 4th video. I would say recently it's been much better. I mean, it certainly helped. I would say my first big break was when Farfa streamed my VFD video, and I got some traction there. And I think he tweeted me, because at the time I had a Twitter account, I never use it, so I didn't know where all these people were coming from. And then someone mentioned in the comments, it's like, oh yeah, he tweeted you. I'm like, oh, okay, that explains it. So then that's when I started using Twitter, which I don't really tweet that much anyways. I don't even know how I have like 200 something followers when I just don't really tweet at all. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, I would say not really a burnout, but more so just like lack of motivation sometimes because of the effort you put into a certain video. Doesn't do well, and, you know, you want to ideally, like, you see the subscriber growth, but you want to see the views grow, because that's really what matters technically, right? Like, you want to be seen, because there's plenty of channels with a lot of subscribers, but they get like, you know, like something like 10 views, right? Then that's like not as impactful, because the whole point of making videos really is you want people to see it. Yeah, so yeah, that's, I guess, my thoughts.
Yeah, and I was actually talking with another content creator earlier today, Neshi. He's like the Crystal Beast guy.
Right, Crystal Beast.
Yeah. Actually talking, like, I actually told him that you were going to be on my podcast, and, you know, he told me that, you know, like well deserved, because like we got that because we had that Farfa shout out. First of all, that really helped you, and then you also bring that, again, that uniqueness to your channel, which like nobody else really ever does with that data. So he told me he was really excited to listen to that. So whenever he listens to it, I'm sure he'll definitely let me know. So and that's the thing about the middling channels that kind of like you and I, were like, we're just kind of like middle of the pack, like up and coming kind of thing, where, you know, when you kind of do all these videos and then maybe not get all the views you want, and then it's like, then you kind of get that, you know, thought crept into your head. It's like, you know, is it really worth it to be doing like this much work and committing this much time if like the results are not there? And it's really easy to get demotivated to do these. So is there something you would tell yourself to keep pushing with these videos that you have been, since you have been doing it consistently now for the past year?
Yeah, I mean, I would say one thing that is kind of nice to think about is, you know, each time where I thought maybe I should just, you know, retire the channel, you have these instances, for example, like we were talking about when Farfa streams, and then all of a sudden you go up quite a bit. And so you realize that, you are potentially like, like one video away from like getting you a big break, right? And it's, I know that sounds kind of cheesy. It's sort of like when back in the old days when someone is trying to be like a rock star or something, and they're like, oh, just like one like concert away from being like a star or something. But yeah, I mean, I think that's what's kind of interesting. And, people are definitely very supportive. It's really cool when you think about it in a way. You have these complete strangers you've never met, but they always comment on your videos and they're very supportive. And it is very nice feeling. And yeah, and also thanks to Neshi for the comments. Yeah, I think it's also cool because he's also someone who plays like, well, I don't know if he only plays that deck. I just know he's known for because I know I only play one deck because that's just all the time I have. And that relates to another struggle that I've been experiencing in a way is, when you make a YouTube channel, it's like you want to be clear on your audience, right? Like who you're making videos for. And for me, it's a little weird because I originally started out as a Cyber Dragon content because I started posting on the Facebook groups because I was already kind of well encompassed in that community. So it helped to start out. And then, of course, I can't just limit to Cyber Dragon. So I make these data videos that are applicable to any Yu-Gi-Oh player. But then now I basically have sort of like two audiences, right? Those who are coming for Cyber Dragon content and those who are coming for data videos, and ones that may not be interested in the other content. Some watch both, not gonna lie, but realistically, most of it's gonna be, people who are coming for data videos are most likely not interested in the Cyber Dragon stuff, right? Because it is a rogue deck. It's not something, a lot of people will be playing for a competitive event. So I always get worried that, when I post a video that they didn't come for, that they'll just be kind of turned off by the channel, right?
Yeah.
So I think I've done multiple polls in terms of how they feel about it or like what they come to the channel for. And it seems to me, for the most part, like fine. It's not enough for where they feel like they need to unsubscribe because they see content, that's not what they came for. And I do try to I am more focused on data videos, I admit. But the Cyber Dragon videos, I would say, technically are the ones that do the best performance-wise. And they're also, I would say, they've been with me the longest. And I certainly wouldn't just stop making that kind of content either. So yeah, hopefully I can create this, harmonious like audience where they don't mind when a different content comes. I think, it's not like I'm all of a sudden making a video on like a completely different trading card game, right? Then that'd be too drastic. But yeah, hopefully people don't mind. That's always been I'd say my main concern with the channel in terms of my audience, and hoping that they're okay with seeing a video that doesn't relate to them and they just skip it and they just wait for the next one.
So this is something that I've been seeing with a lot of the more like the middle or like the middling like up and coming YouTubers that are around, is that they started kind of branching off, doing like several different topics that may not appeal to like the first topic. Like, well, let's take myself for example. Like I obviously started this entire channel as just a strict podcast channel, and then I recently starting doing news, and I've had comments on some of my friends and viewers where they say like, I like your podcast, I don't really care too much for your news, and then and vice versa, like I like your news but I don't really care for your podcast. And then you see a lot of other people, they might do Yu-Gi-Oh for one thing, and then they might stray off and do like a different game like Digimon, or they might stream like video games or something like that. And I feel like that could like polarize your audience a little bit, and I don't know if that you would consider that a good thing or a bad thing. Like, would you think that like doing a lot of like separate content and trying to expand too much can be like a bit of a bad thing because it polarizes the audience, or do you have like a different opinion on the matter?
So I think like for your example, like if it's like news and podcast, I think that's like really close enough that that's totally fine posting. But if I'm thinking more like if you start posting like the Digimon card game or like Magic for a Yu-Gi-Oh channel, then I think that's not a good idea. And that's something where I've done just like before starting the channel, I did a lot of like general YouTube search on like, oh, how to create a channel. And it's like you need to kind of stick to that audience, right? Like not a lot of people are playing multiple card games, and it's not enough in a competitive level. So I think as long as it's within Yu-Gi-Oh, it would still work. So yeah, I mean, for me, I think there's also pros and cons, right? So for example, by starting with the very deck specific content in terms of Cyber Dragons, the pros were that I had this community that I was already sort of familiar with, and it allowed you to grow a little faster from the get-go because people come for this specific content. The cons of that, though, of course, is now your overall growth. You have this good growth at the beginning, but when you do deck specific content, you're not going to grow as large over the course because there's only so many Cyber Dragon players, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then data videos, that's when I think it kind of came at a good timing though. You kind of build your base first and then I start trying to expand, but I have to put a good mix. So for example, I almost never post back-to-back Cyber Dragon content because I don't want people to think that, it's like the new subscribers. I don't want them to think, oh man, is this only Cyber Dragon? It's like, no. It's like, to be honest with you, it's mostly data related videos, but there's going to be some sprinkles of Cyber Dragon content. But there always will be. I'm not going to just stop doing that. I think my Cyber Dragon viewers are very, very like super loyal, and I would want to bring the content that they want to see as well. So yeah, I guess I would say we can't be too polarizing, right? Like I said, in terms of the extreme examples of a different game, because you see these like random YouTube channels where they'll have like some videos of like them being at a concert, and then there's like a video of like Yugioh, and then there's a video of like an anime review, like all in the same channel. And that's when you see these like channels with like, they may have some subs because they have like one viral video or something, but they don't get a lot of views because it's just all over the place, right?
Yeah.
And so at some point people will probably click like, oh, like not interested, and then it just like stops recommending. And one thing I wish YouTube would have is when you make a video, I wish there was, I know they have tags, but I want like more legit tags where, let's say, you can say like, for me, for example, I can have a tag where it's data videos and I can have a tag where it's Cyber Dragon content. So in the future, when viewers see a video, they can say, oh, only show me the videos with a data tag in my recommended, and just don't show me Cyber Dragons, right? I think that would be really good, because then I'm worried when someone sees like a Cyber Dragon video and they click not interested, then it would just no longer recommend any videos from my channel at all, right? So I think if there was some kind of like accurate tag system like that, it'd be kind of nice, rather than having to like create a separate channel for each one, even though it's still part of Yugioh. I think that'd be kind of nice.
Yeah. Well, first of all, just to that point, I think now that YouTube has started to implement like hashtags where you can actually do like they did on Twitter, where you could like click on a hashtag and then it kind of like send you this kind of list of stuff that you could like look through. Is that something you ever considered trying to do, or is that something you even knew of to begin with?
I remember I noticed that like way back when I first started channel, but I never like I wasn't even sure how to do that actually. I don't know if there was like a separate section to put hashtags, or if you just put that in the video description and it automatically comes up at the top. I think it like showed like up to three hashtags, but I don't know. Like I was never like a hashtag person to begin with in terms of like Twitter or Instagram. So I don't know. I should probably try, but I just go with like the video description. I remember it early on. I tried kind of experimenting in terms of like, I would try to type some keywords and see if my video would come up. And I found whatever tags I put, it just like never worked. But whatever I had in the video description did work. So I tried to just fit a lot of things in there, hoping that it would come up. But I don't know. I find the search algorithm for YouTube isn't that great. For example, if you have like, Meta and like Cyber Dragon, and then kind of like a few words later, you have like July 2021, and someone searches Cyber Dragon July 2021, it doesn't necessarily come up, even though you think it'd be obvious, right? But it's like, it has to be like literally like that sometimes, like just word for word, back to back. So the YouTube search algorithm I find is a little weird, and their recommended certainly favors towards bigger content creators whenever you search anything, and that's usually what comes up first.
Yeah, because I think it's also fairly recent that they introduced it as well, so it may not be like a perfected or a really polished like algorithm yet. I'm not sure yet. I just started doing it not too long ago, but I don't really have enough data to really like form a conclusion on it yet. It's just something I started, so that's something that I have to kind of monitor moving forward. But I know that I was told by one of my YouTuber friends, just out of anecdotal evidence here, that like just try it out and just see if there's any trending that changes or whatnot. So I'm trying that now. I don't know if it's working, but I'm sure eventually I'm gonna amass enough data to really see the result. But who knows for now? I don't have an opinion for it now, just because I don't have the data in front of me. No pun intended.
Yeah.
And then to further go with another point, about we were talking about kind of like the polarization of putting different content. Like that's what I did too with my channel. Like for the first the first year, all I did was just podcast, because that's what I wanted to be known as. I just want to do like podcast. And it wasn't until about like a month or two ago where I finally started, okay, let's start doing news now that I've built a little bit more of a following. But at the same time, it still relates to like the gimmick that I'm putting out. Like I put out that I'm a journalist. That's what I do. And, podcast and news, that's all tied with journalism. And that's kind of the same thing with you, in a sense, where when you do data, you kind of branch out and just starting to do like data, like not just like deck lists or meta. Now you start branching out to like certain situations as well, but still implementing like data into it. So you feel like you agree with me, or you have a differing opinion of like where you should probably build yourself up a base first before you start to kind of branch out and try to do other things?
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, because I'm obviously not an expert. I've only been doing YouTube for a year. But I mean,
Yeah.
for me personally, I tried building a base first, because it's not just about whatever video ideas. It's like, do you even want to do YouTube in the first place? And
Yeah.
I think another thing, the reason why I started with cyberdying content was that I was confident with it. I knew enough things to say for the first few videos that I went with that. And it was just more of like building your comfort level, I would say. I mean, if you want to, venture out and just try completely different things from the beginning, like, sure, if it works, I mean, great. I mean, yeah, but YouTube is certainly a tough world in terms of starting out. I mean, thinking back, I remember, I think my first like day, I had like 4 subscribers, and keep in mind, 3 of them were just like my friends, and 1 was like my personal channel.
Yeah.
So it was like not even actual new people. So it's a very slow start. I mean, for example, my first video, if you were to look, I think it had something like 850 views, but it's like when I first posted that, for like the first 3 or 4 days, it was at like 10 views. Like it was like slow. And I had like super low expectations. It was like 11 views at one point. It was like 4 of them were for me. So
Yep.
yeah, but it's a slow start. Sometimes you get lucky, and I think you do get blessed by the algorithm. Sometimes I've yet to be blessed at all, but maybe one day it happens. And I think pandemic was a situation where probably a lot of people started trying YouTube. I mean, I know there were a lot of YouTube videos on like how to start a channel in 2020. I mean, that's sort of how it got me in. And yeah, it's just a lot of trial and error. It's hard to get. You can watch all these videos you want in terms of like, oh, these are what you should do to get the best views. But I don't know. I found it was pretty hard to have like a concrete answer. It's just quite different for each channel. And yeah, try your best.
Well, you and I started our YouTube channels. Well, really, I rehashed mine, but you pretty much started yours around the same time I rehashed my channel. So, what decided for you that you actually wanted to start your YouTube channel and like incorporate data into it?
It's so funny that this is the reason I started the channel, but basically, so at the time of recording this, it's July 26th, right? So my first video was actually July 24th of last year. So like I said, it's like essentially a year now. And I remember watching this like pack opening Yu-Gi-Oh video. It was like some complete random person. I have no idea what that channel was, but I remember thinking like, man, this is like really low quality. It was just like, I'm like, surely I could at least do better than this, which is funny. I never ended up doing any form of like pack opening anyways, but it's just funny that of all things, it wasn't some like amazing video that motivated me to do it, but it was more like, you know what? I could at least do something like this and see how it goes. I have some extra time and let's kind of start looking into it. So I looked into, how to create a YouTube channel, like, logos and whatever, just like all these basic things. And I quickly learned about mics and how important it is, because my very first video, I used my laptop mic and it is so terrible. I didn't really understand. I mean, it's not like I've ever done anything close to this. And I didn't understand how like laptop and cell phone mics, they pick up like everything in the background. Like my girlfriend was watching TV and laughing and we just like clearly picked that up. And then you start learning how important mics are in terms of reducing background noise. But yeah, I'm totally going on a tangent here. I honestly don't even remember the question. But yeah.
Like how you got started with your YouTube channel, and then you went off with seeing like one other video and thinking you could do better.
Yeah, it's funny. So I thought I'd just make a video, and then I think so. Yeah, my first video was this is my kind of plan, was that I didn't want to, like I said earlier, you kind of want to have that balance of saving the right video until you get a little bit more following. So very first video, I knew it was going to be terrible. So I'm like, you know what? let's do like a dueling book replay commentary. It's super low effort. Like it. Oh no, I shouldn't say that. Sorry, I really shouldn't say that because I love DV Grinder. I would say it's not as time consuming. That's probably the better word. So I did that, and yeah. So obviously I didn't have any high expectations. And the next one I did was like Cyber Dragon ruling videos, which I would say was more applicable and more helpful. So yeah, that's where and the way it helped out was I have another friend from that Cyber Dragon community, Team Set Pass. At that point, he had about close to 1,000 subscribers, and he actually like did a quick screen capture of like my channel in one of his next videos saying like, oh, hey, he started a YouTube channel. And the reason why some people in that group may have known me was I was on Team Sam's channel a few months before that for winning the OTS championship. So that's sort of how he introduced me, and I got some traction there. And I personally think that was very, very important because it was so hard to get subscribers at the beginning, right? And like if you ask yourself, like if you didn't have a YouTube channel, because otherwise you kind of know the feeling, but like if you see a channel and they only had like 3 subscribers, it's going to be hard to convince yourself to subscribe, right? Like it's very hard. Like you want them to have some more videos first and things like that. But that initial push, I think, really helped me. And then I wanted to start putting some different content, like something that would be more applicable to people. So I started venturing out to data videos. It didn't really do well, to be honest with you, all of them at the beginning. And so I kind of took my time until I would say one time I did like an LCS hand trap video. And that was actually my second time I did that. The first one, it wasn't that great. The second time I decided for the first time, I'll post it on Zodiac Facebook group. And so this is where my Yugioh friends, other than my like very small group that I already told, that's when they realized I had a channel as well. And it received pretty well on Facebook. And then I think that's where Nicholas, John, and Hani from Luxury Gaming, they reached out. They wanted to collaborate. And then I did some LCS breakdown posters and deck lists and videos for them. And that, helped me grow as well. And then eventually I was just like too busy. I couldn't, because you have to reliably like make time Saturday and Sunday to be able to do that.
Yeah, you really
I wasn't confident I could do that, which would be a disservice to them. So I told them like, I can't do it anymore, but it's been great. It was a great experience. I love them. They're really cool. So yeah, I think that's where my channel really gained traction, was that November when I officially started doing like LCS stuff. And the meta analysis that's when it first formed as like a monthly series. And so I think from there, I kind of experienced steady growth, and I did hit a stalemate. And then that Farfa shutout did pump me up. And then from there, I think this YCS top was like the best one so far in terms of like, it brought a lot of people to my channel. I recently did a guest upload for Team Sam that brought some, traffic as well. Of course, he's like the biggest YouTube channel, I think, other than maybe, I know Simply Unlucky has more subscribers technically, but he's like a pack opening channel. So it's a little different than like, Deck Profile, that kind of channel. And Team APS, I would say, is also up there in terms of size and views. But yeah, so it certainly helps when you have a big channel that you get to sort of guest upload and shout your own channel out. And
yeah, those endorsements can like really turn the tide on it, because I know that Crush Cards, for example, they went I don't know, were you at that, first of all, were you at that November 30th regional at U of T?
So it's funny. I was actually visiting my parents back home in Vancouver at that point. So I was not there, but I knew that very well because my close friend, Eric, is the one that came second place with trains in that regional.
The train strikers.
I was following Team Sam's channel closely for that, just to wait for that deck profile to come up. And then I saw Logan from Crush Cards. I mean, I don't know them too well personally. We've talked like very, very briefly when I was doing this one Yu-Gi-Oh player survey video, but it was like a super great profile. I know their channel exploded from that. I remember listening to that podcast on your channel, and I know they grew a lot from the Team Sam exposure. So yeah, there's obviously a really big effect when you have whatchamacallit, a big channel shouting you out or being featured on their channel. But at the same time, it does matter also in like the content you bring anyways and your personality. They're obviously very bubbly and they're very fun to watch. So sort of mended together and worked really well. And I would say, I think it's also very impressive because I think their channel was really small before they got that shout out, right? I think.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
You're right.
So I think that's impressive because, even when you get a shout out from a big channel, if they're not that established, it can still be kind of hard to grow. But I think because they already saw what she was like, and same with Brian, like they're like, they just seem like super fun people. And so yeah, I think it like just like created this really good storm where they just like exploded, and they decided to like really commit to that channel more than they have been. And so yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely half of it too, because after they got that shutout, I know that I didn't really hear of them before that shutout, but after they got that shutout, they did get a little more popular. But once they did get it, like they worked their tails off like crazy in order to like keep that following and then grow it as well. Like I've had numerous conversations with them, and they tell me about their sleep schedule, how much work they have to actually put into it, how much like sleep they've sacrificed, or how like late they would have to sleep in just to be able to get the sleep that they would need to be able to fully function on it. And it's absolutely extraordinary how much work they put into it. I think they just reached 30,000 subscribers today or not too long ago. So congratulations to them. I know I did that on a personal level to them earlier in the day, but that's just the half of it. Like you can be shouted out, but you really have to capitalize on that momentum, or else you might like lose your following, because if you might be out of the algorithm or something like that if you're not posting for quite a while, and then that's not something you want to do. Like you want to keep being known and kind of put out that content, so that way people are like constantly reminded, or at least like in some way like have your face out there on YouTube, because like I know the algorithm can be wonky or weird. Like I don't know how exactly it works or whatnot, but you have to put out content at least to be known and at least be seen.
Yeah, and it's funny for me because being blessed by the algorithm is rare. So I told myself, you know what, the other way of getting your channel to sort of do really well is actually sort of top this extravaganza or YCS, right? Because it sort of becomes this like lottery ticket in a way for your chance to grow. For example, I know with like Yishan, I'm a fan of his channel. Like he's obviously a really good player. He does well to begin with, but he did, I think, particularly well one extravaganza. And then he was on like MSC TV's channel, and then like that's when his channel like really like started growing, and now like consistently. So like those kind of like event tops can make a difference. And this is where when you play like a rogue deck too, that helps even more, because even though you're not going to top consistently, when you do top, it actually gathers a lot of attention, right? So yeah, so I was hoping, who knows? I was like, maybe one day I'll do better. I only participated in one extravaganza because they happen on a Sunday and they go really late, and we're EST time zone. It's like ridiculous. I think it goes to like, I heard it went to like 3 a.m. in one instance, and I'm not going to stay up for that when I have work the next day. And the only reason I joined the May extravaganza was because the Monday was a holiday in Ontario, or I don't know, I forget what was that, Victoria Day? Or maybe Victoria Day, all of Canada. And so I did that, and I actually did. Technically, I was doing well. The very last round, if I lost to the Mystic Mind player that finished 14th, who topped. So basically, if I won that final round, I'm kind of confident I probably would have finished in the top 16, because another player I lost to also finished in top 16. So I probably had good tiebreakers. So, that was a bummer. It sucks like playing till late with the potential to top and then just kind of lose at the end, especially to Mystic Mind. Because that was the only rogue deck I played all day. I was like beating like Dragon Link prank hits like left and right, and then I'm like, oh my god, like this is the one deck I lose to. And then I didn't join any extravaganzas since then. I don't really plan to again because it's Sunday. I think there was one like just like the past weekend, right? And I actually didn't even really know about it. And then the YCS was better because it was like, oh, it's Saturday, and then technically on Sunday. But I didn't even expect that. I was like, if I can make day 2, that'd be great. But if not, that's totally fine. And yeah, and it ended up being going smoothly, and I did do well, fortunately. And yeah, it's definitely a good step from my channel. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, because I remember you almost forgot that you had to play another
I did not
round.
know exactly. It's because I'm a Yu-Gi-Oh player and I don't know how to read. And the way I interpreted the website was that it said 1 to 16th would go to the live stream. So I just assumed after Swiss, the standings, those are the people that go to the live stream.
Yeah.
So that's why I posted on Facebook what I was playing. I posted on YouTube, like Twitter. And then I got a notification. I got like a Discord notification saying the pairings are up. And I thought it was for a side event, but I checked anyways just to be safe. And it said I was at table 6. And I'm like, what the hell? And then I quickly found out there's actually first round of top cut. It was a whole lot more sense, by the way. I'm like, okay, this is a lot more fair. And then so I show up like super flustered. I like, keep in mind at this point I had cleared my setup for Remote Duel. I was about to start like I was gonna make food,
Yeah.
and then I had to just like throw my map back in the table. I just like turned the camera on. It wasn't even like facing the right direction. I'm just like, I'm here. I don't know what time it is. Like, but and luckily it didn't actually start, and they had a judge at every table in Discord, which was kind of cool actually. It was nice.
Yes.
And yeah, so and it was funny. My opponent actually, he was already subscribed to me. It was so funny. And yeah, he was super cool. I mean, I was like pretty flustered starting that match. I really didn't care. I know some people may say he's just saying that, but I genuinely was so happy that I topped. I did not care how well I did in this first round of Top Cut. And it
Yeah.
actually did go to game 3. Yeah, it was, I'm not going to reveal what he was playing because it's still ongoing, but yeah, he was super cool. I lost in game 3 and I was still super happy. I mean, yeah, top 16, you get a prize card. That'd be super nice. I get like a playmat. So it's like a drastic decline in climbing support. But you know what? The playmat looks pretty dope. So I'm happy. It's still in the mail. Being in Canada, it takes like a month to get here.
Oh my God, right?
It's pretty bad. Yeah. So I'm pretty excited to start putting that in my deck profile videos. And yeah, I mean, it was quite the day. I just couldn't believe it.
I mean, I would definitely share the same sentiments with you as well if I topped the YCS and I would lose in Top Cut, because I know that like when I played a lot of regionals way back then, we would actually play out till like the Top Cut. We'd actually play out top 8, at least till top 4, because at least the pricing was at the same. And it wasn't until they decided to just say, all right, for regionals, we're just going to end it at Swiss because we don't want to waste any more time because we now pay our judges and whatnot. So that I understand. But I if I ever lost in Top Cut in like top 8, only happened once, surprisingly, by the way, when I did top. Like I didn't feel bad at all. It's like, you know what? I made the Top Cut and I'm happy. Or if I topped a regional and I came like 5th to 8th, but not 1st to 4th, I'd be like, I don't care. I topped 8th the event. That's my goal. And I would be happy with it. And even if I didn't get that deck box, I'm like, I got the playmat, I got the top, I have the credential. Like that's a feather in my cap. I'm not going to like poo-poo myself on that for making that accomplishment sort of thing. So I'm with you. Like my one and only YCS top, I topped 32. Like I was 8 up the Swiss, and I won my top 32 match, but lost my top 16 match. And that was the point. I think I would have got like a Nintendo DS or something like that, which I really wanted because my other one was starting to like really like hit the bed and whatnot. So I'm like, I could use a new DS, but I got beat by Jesse Cotton. I mean, no big surprise here, but I was still happy to make that top anyway. So I'm sure that like you felt that same way too when you lost to Mystic Mind. Unfortunately, I had to beat to Mystic Mind, but I'm sure you were just happy with just making that top.
Yeah, and like I started playing competitively like January of 2019. So I actually played longer in the pandemic than in real life. And so in total, I played 4 regionals in total. So 2 of them I played True Draco, 1 was Pendulum, and then 1 was Cyber Dragon when I was kind of early in its. I probably played maybe like 2 months at that point. And then I've been in 2 ICSs in total. One was the only one in real life was the 2019 Niagara. I played Pendulums and I lost 7 of 8 die rolls day 1. I did not do well. I basically won like any game I won. I went first. Any game I went second, I lost. And it just didn't work out. And I remember that was the event where I was telling myself, you know what? I should play a going second deck because I don't want to care about die roll. It was like stressful to me. I'm not like Triff Gaming who, he actually did give me, for people listening, I guess, like we go to the same locals. So, he was super cool. Like he gave me a lot of good advice, but, I just was not a good Pendulum player. And I just needed something else where I wasn't die roll dependent. And like, let me tell you, like my stress level whenever I summoned Electromite was so high and I was just always bracing for impact. And I'm like, I can't do this. Like I need like a going second deck. And you can actually like trace back my Reddit post history and you'll see how I like come eventually to Cyber Dragons. I had these like commenters that like helped me learn how to. So I basically learned how to play deck through Reddit. It was funny. And then I kind of went from there. And it's funny because I started competitive play with True Draco, and then I probably played that for like 3 months. It was good to start out because I didn't really know the rules. And so then I played Pendulums for like 6 months. And then after that, it's been Cyber Dragon since, especially because like the pandemic, I didn't want to like switch decks. And now that I started a channel, I feel like I can't really switch decks anymore. So I think I'll just keep playing this until I eventually quit the game. But yeah.
I mean, you could kind of do what Triff does because, like that. Okay, going back to that ill-fated regional, that's been mentioned a million times. That November 30th regional, you're off in Vancouver.
Mhm.
I had to play Triff that day, and I knew he wasn't playing pendulums that day, and he topped that event.
Yeah, Strike Orcus, right? I remember.
Yeah, Striker Orcus. Yep, I lost, by the way. I lost in the bubble. I was very upset because I bricked both games. I will not let that get past me.
Right, is that the one where you got deck checked and then you bricked?
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I remember.
And like oh my god, I don't blame the judges one bit, but it's just stuff that happens. It's like, oh, I can't believe that happened. But anyway, like I remember, like after that regional, like Triff made a video. It's like pendulums like are like no longer like the best deck, or like they're the worst deck now, or like they're not. He kind of like did like a teaser, and then he just kind of did like jokes, LOL, trolled you. No, I'm still on the pendulum boat, and that could be, something that you could do moving forward if you ever decide to stray away from Cyber Dragons for even just temporarily, and just kind of make that just a fun little gimmicky thing, and kind of see the more like the lighter side of you in a sense, because the way your channel's like demeanor is.
Yeah, I think initially during the pandemic, like the early days, I wasn't because especially when I didn't have a channel, I wasn't like I was looking into another deck to play. I think if I were to play another deck, I would definitely like to play Pendulum Magicians again. It was super fun. I mean, hey, and I mean, Electromite's not here, so I'm not as stressed. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, yeah, I think, but I don't know. It takes a while to sort of, at least for me, to really get the nitty gritty of the deck, right? And so I think with Cyber Dragons, I'm just like comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And I mean, so I have two good friends, Miguel and Drew, and they're both known to play heroes. Like I swear, like their entire Yu-Gi-Oh life. And actually, they were both on Team Sam's channel. Now that I think about it, but they're great players, and it's weird. I know a lot of players will want to keep playing a new deck over time, right? But I actually liked being like that guy at locals that plays one particular like rogue deck, right? Like I have another friend, Sebastian. He plays like Necron, and so like things like that stand out. And of course, the downside is people know what you're playing all the time. Well, on the other hand, it almost like I almost don't care, because I would literally like show up at locals with like a Cyber Dragon playmat and Cyber Dragon Field Center. It's just like, wow, I wonder what this guy's playing. So yeah, I mean, of course, for regionals, I would not bring those mats. But yeah, I think I like just playing the one deck. But like I said earlier, it is ideal that you at least play online with other tier 1 and tier 2 decks. And I'm not quite sure I really have time for that. I'd like to. I feel like in a way, maybe I'm just making an excuse when I do actually have time to do that, and I'm just choosing not to.
Yep.
And I don't know. You know what? Maybe I just don't want to like try to take the time to learn, because I don't know. I find it takes me a while to learn a new deck. And so maybe it's just not meant for me. And I just essentially I use like my best judgment. And I also rely on videos like, for example, MSC TV and Pack. They do like these really great videos on like hand traps, when to hand trap, or whatever, going second cards. So things like that, that's very, very useful. And I use that as well. And I think in a way, maybe this is encouraging, because for other people who they also may not have all the time in the world to play this game and play every deck, right? Yeah. So there's still a chance you could top. It's not going to happen consistently. I'm certain, like, I don't expect to top a YCS consistently. I'm probably a one-hit wonder, to be real. Like I think I already peaked. So and I'm happy with that. Like to say, I still can't even like I still can't even believe I can say I topped a YCS, but and I'm not going to like say that. I'm not really the type to really, talk about those things, I guess. I mean, for example, with like the Cyber Dragon community, some people will say, oh yeah, he's like one of the best in the community or whatever. And I really, really like brush that off. I don't want that kind of title or, recognition. I would think that would just put unnecessary pressure for me. I just want to have fun. And so, if someone wants to be known as like the best Cyber Dragon player, or, the quote unquote Cyber Dragon god, like they can go for it. Like I'll support you. That's not something I want. And so, yeah, it's just sort of my take.
I have a little bit more time than you, just because I think I know like how to play other decks a little bit better, but I'm kind of on the same boat with you, like not being able to learn like so many other decks, because I've actually yet to play against a Tri Brigade deck, aside from I think I played a tournament on Saturday for fun, but I bricked both games. I was playing Drytron. I bricked both games, so I really didn't have much of an idea of how it worked, and it was also Melfi's mixed into it, so it wasn't really a true Tri Brigade deck. So I still have no idea how they fully operate. So like I'm in the dark about it, and I think the pandemic has a little bit to something to do with this because I don't play as many tournaments as I do with remote duels. Like I have a setup and everything like that, and I totally could play if I wanted to. Like I still play them like some of the special days, not like the extravaganza or anything like that, but like if there's anything that like a locals would run, like a remote duel invitational, something like that, or like a Yu-Gi-Oh day, like I would play in those because I really enjoy playing those and kind of challenge myself playing against those rogue decks. But yeah, for some reason I just haven't played a Tri Brigade deck, and when I play Drytrons, like you basically breathe on them and then they're in trouble already. That's how I feel.
Yeah. And one thing, so before the pandemic, I actually never played online, like hardly. Maybe I would like do a quick test on like Dueling Nexus just to see if like the plays I was trying to do was like legal because it's like automated. But one thing that pandemic has shown me is that I started playing Dueling Book and it was very helpful. You get to go through a lot of matches in a shorter period of time than like in locals where you probably spend like 4 or 5 hours for 4 matches, right? And in that span you could probably play like 10 matches on Dueling Book. And just going through trial and error, like you make misplays, and I try my best. If it's something that is more generic, then I try to write it down. So for example, like something simple, let's say your opponent like call by the graves, your hand trap, then you should keep in mind if they try to or if they try to activate that same hand trap when your turn rolls around, it's going to be negated, right? But so like generic things like that, like if I make a misplay like that, I'll like try to write it down so I know for the future. And I think through Dueling Book, I got better at those kind of things where I'm constantly reminding myself, like, what are the things I have to look out for, right? Like how many summons have I done so far? Or, what's my life point at? Because early days when Anaconda was first released, there were instances where I would go into Anaconda and I realized I'm like, oh man, I'm at like below 2000. I can't even do it. Like, so you learn through mistakes, right? Like, and you'd much rather make these misplays in Dueling Book than even like a locals, because at least at locals you can get some kind of prizing, right? Like just on Dueling Book, it's just like internet points. It's like, it's whatever. Like you lose, it's fine. But so yeah, I think being able to just grind, not that I can really grind anymore. I'm talking about in the days where I didn't have the channel, but yeah, I think making misplays, it's like you get to learn a lot from it. And that's sort of how I've come to learn now, because I find I'm trying to spend all the time I have to play my own deck. So I basically just learn through misplays, and I try hand trapping at a certain situation. Did it work? Did it not? I don't know. And so yeah, things like that.
Yeah, and that's what I always do every time I always lose. I always think back, okay, like what could I have done better? Like where did I go wrong? Like why did I lose? It's asking those kind of questions that really help you, like, improve as a player. Like we all know that we've had that story where people would like always put like the blame on something else or someone else where they lost, and it's easy to kind of brush that aside of yourself when you kind of put the blame on someone else. But it takes a lot of like guts to be able to look at yourself and say, okay, what happened? Like, did I misplay? Did I do something wrong? And and you get better for it. I remember I talked with Dale Bolito, and he told me I don't count the wins. I count my losses. Because those are the ones I truly remember. I don't remember any of my wins whatsoever, with the exception of his Shonen Jump Championship win. Other than that, he just remembers his losses, and I think that's a big reason why him and Lazaro are so skilled, is because they always have that time to be able to reflect and like use that information for the next game. And we're starting to see a lot more accountability, I think, in at least a lot of the better players. Like there's a lot more accountability in them. Like they don't put a lot of blame on like other outside factors. I mean, of course, luck is a product of card games. Of course, I would assume that you would know that of all people, being a data person, statistician. But and sometimes they're right. Sometimes it is a product of luck that they would lose by. But at the same time, you got to be able to analyze like what was a product of luck, what was a product of skill, what was a product of just like really, really really bad luck and whatnot. So being able to analyze that and take it to the next game, I feel, is always important anytime you play a Yu-Gi-Oh match.
Yeah, no, it's for sure. I think that's one of the things where sort of the quantitative side helps. I mean, you may brick, but I mean, although like keep in mind, like all these Yu-Gi-Oh events, even like a big event, for example, let's say it's like 12 rounds, like 12 matches, it's still like a very small sample size. So there's always going to be variance, like regardless of how consistent your deck is. And that's sort of the thing that, I try my best to like acknowledge, right? Like, for example, when you have a bad hand and you just have to face it, it's like that's just part of the game, and it does happen sometimes. And I think just staying composed really does help. I mean, like my very first game in the first round of YCS, like I had the most unplayable hand. I don't even know how I survived like 3 turns. Like I died obviously, but
Wow.
I think I drew like just like droplet like cyclones and like red eyes black dragon. And like it was like literally unplayable. And
Wow.
to start out the YCS like that, I'm like, yeah, it's just like one of those days, you know. But I try my best to like laugh it off. And my games 2 and 3, my hands weren't even good. Like I kept drawing red eyes or dark magician like every single game. And then like game 2 was basically like Dragoon beatdown. And then game 3 was like Nibiru beatdown. So sometimes your hand isn't great, but it doesn't mean you're gonna lose. Like I did win that match, but it was just like a really awkward match. I'm like, I don't even know what deck I was playing. It was just so weird. But yeah, you know, it's part of the game, especially when you're playing a rogue deck. I think important thing is to like have realistic standards, right? It's like a rogue deck for a reason. It's not gonna do consistently well all the time, otherwise it'd be tier 1 or 2 or whatever. And so yeah, that's sort of why I had this like very like free, you know, mind, you know, going in. I was like, I just had baby steps. This is only my second YCS ever. Let's just try to make it to day 2. And then I made day 2. I'm like, I don't even care what happens tomorrow. And then I somehow did really well. Like I started off with the tie, and then I'm like, okay, that's not as bad as a loss at least. And then I won the next one. Like I won pretty handily. It was like Tri Brigade, and I just like 2-0'd him. And then it put a lot of pressure on me now because I was 8-1-1 heading into the final round. That meant if I won, I guarantee a top spot. If I lose, I guarantee not making top cut, because a good handful of more like among the X2s, more X2s would not make top 32 than those that would, right? So X11 was a good spot. Technically, it's better than what you could ask for if you were X2, for example, but it did put a lot of pressure. And my last round, it turns out he goes to the same Remote Duel locals that I was participating in, which was Carta Magica. We haven't actually played against each other, but he said he recognized my voice. So yeah, it was super, super cool guy. And we ended up having, I honestly, I played really well throughout the whole tournament, but that match, I was so nervous. I made like such terrible misplays in games 2 and 3, and I somehow still won. But man, it would have been terrible if I lost that, because I just made, like, for example, I remember I banished Almirage with Pot of Prosperity because I didn't think I needed it anymore. And then I realized right after, I'm like, oh no, I still needed it. So I had to like crash my core into like one of his Tri Brigade monsters, take like 1,600 damage just to get the core engrave. And I'm like, and not to mention I lose a body, right? I'm like, wow, that was like super neg, but like I literally had to do that to be able to activate a repair plant. So I somehow managed to win game 3 too, man. I did not think I was gonna win that. It was awkward start, and then I think I at least had like an imperm from like to stop him on like, I don't know, let's say like turn 3, and then I had like all I had were like 1 core on the field and 2 cosmic cyclones. Like it was not very intimidating, and I think he didn't have like, or maybe I had another imperm, and that's why I stopped his monster. And then he set 2 and passed, and then I double cycloned it, right? And at that point, I don't think he had any cards left in his hand anymore. And so I was able to like come back. But I just like, just throughout the whole event, I just had all these like really like awkward hands where it was like very normal, to be honest with you, playing this deck. So, you know, you don't necessarily lose all of them. You can like, if play it out, you just have like weird wins, but a win's a win. So it works. I would say only time where I had like where I felt I had like the most amazing, like perfect hand was last round of day 1, which was against a really good player. Like I'm not gonna say names because I don't want to seem like I'm clout chasing, but yeah, it was like the only reason probably why I won, because he is such a good player. He always kicks my ass. Like there was just no other world where I should have won, and other than that situation, I feel, because I just had a good hand, and yeah, it worked out. And so yeah, but other than that, I was happy that it wasn't because, you know, I had these like amazing hands throughout the whole tournament. No, it's like they were very standard, honestly, but it just worked out sometimes. And yeah, you just get a little lucky, I guess.
Well, it's definitely something I wanted to talk to you about, was your actual deck itself, because I think it's fairly obvious at this point why you're running Cyber Dragons. I think that's kind of been answered throughout the entirety of this podcast. But looking at your deck, it looked like you were almost planning to just go second with it. Like, we understand that Cyber Dragons inherently are very good going second just by the whole nature of it, but it looks like you even added more onto that, because I see that you had a double Lightning Storm and double Cosmic Cyclone, like triple Droplet, for example,
Mhm.
and triple Purpose. Were you planning to basically just have it as a go second deck?
Yep. I would say Cyber Dragons are definitely a going second deck. Even the trap version of Cyber Dragons, you actually still go second. And I think it's just like it doesn't have any one card combos for the most part, right? I mean, technically, Core's a Dragoon now on its own, but still, like you always need like 2 pieces, and you just really need that 6th card. And I would say the only deck like Drytron was, I would say, very difficult typically going second against. So that's something I would try to go first if I had the opportunity, like post side. But funnily enough, the 3 Drytrons I faced in the tournament, all 3 game 1s I actually won, even though I went second, and I didn't really like build my deck that way. I expected to lose game 1s against Drytron each time, but yeah, if you draw like a hand trap or 2, it works out. But yeah, definitely going second, which is not for the last little while, especially during the pandemic, since Secret Slayers has not been great, to be honest with you. Like Dinos was an exception because they have something like Misk, which protects your monsters, right? Your dinos. And if I had something like that, that'd be really, really critical. But you think about it, for example, from when the pandemic started, you had Adamantipator, which was like full power, was just so bonkers in terms of what they could set up. Going second was like straight up so difficult. Synchro Eldritch, essentially, I would consider that as the most difficult deck to side against, because you have combo aspect, you have control aspect, and you may side like, or you may draw the side cards and they just happen to not even like have much background. They just have a like combo, or you have like Nibiru and then they just happen to like set 5 paths because they just didn't have that kind of hand. And so that was like weird. And so you like throughout the whole period of the pandemic, you have Infernoble that hand rips. That's very difficult for going second decks. You have Buster Lock Dragon Link. You have VFD that you just can't do anything. So it hasn't been great for going second decks. I just play it because I'm just stubborn. But I would say now it's certainly better than it was before, especially, for example, Sky Strikers. It's funny because Sky Strikers is also going second deck. But the good thing with that deck is they're not going to kill you. Like, whereas with Dinos, it's like, shoot, like if they make me go first and I just pass, they'll probably kill me, right? So it's a lot different dynamic. And Cyber Dragons have a very good matchup against, well, I wouldn't say very good, but definitely a good, unique advantage over Sky Striker with the Mega Fleet and not triggering Ray. The downside is they do play a lot of hand traps, which, it's kind of hard for Cyber Dragons to play through too many hand traps. Depends on the hand. And yeah, same with Salad. We do have a pretty good advantage as well in terms of turning off the Roar if you can link away or fuse away their Link monster for Mega Fleet. So that's what I expected, but I didn't face Sky Strikers at all during the tournament, and I played Salad only in round 1, and that was it. So I didn't really have any advantage other than Code Talkers, which is funny because, and this was like round 6. We were like both 5-0. He was doing really well, and he was also from Canada. He linked me, and then I like special summon Cyber Dragon, and I'm like, okay, goodbye. Like, got rid of those 2 monsters and the extra monsters. But it was actually a very hard match, honestly. Like, it was a tough fought game 3. I mean, that was the first time I've ever played against that deck, and I was just like, I didn't know what to stop because clearly it wasn't working. Whatever I stopped, like it just kept going. I remember he started off with like Lady Debug. I'm like, oh, okay, Salad, and then like 3 seconds later, I'm like, wait, no, what is this? And it was just like, oh my god, and I didn't know most of the cards that he was playing, and I had to have him like explain to me, which I felt bad because it was just like so difficult because he'd be like, okay, this one's unaffected, this one can't be targeted, this one can't be disrobed battle. Like it was like, oh my god, like, and their names were just like so damn long, like I just couldn't keep up. But yeah, it was certainly a fun deck, and I would say, I don't know if we're gonna talk matchups, but yeah, it was like 3 Drytron, 2 Tri Brigade, 2 Dogmatic Invoke Shaddoll, and then I had those rogue decks that I mentioned, like Salad, Code Talker, the Orcus Mech Knight. He's actually top 16 right now. He was my only loss. And then I'm trying to remember what other rogue deck or what other deck I played against it. Kind of
there's a Subterra Dragoon.
Oh wow, good. Yeah, good call. Yeah, it was Subterra Dragoon. He was I believe he had multiple YCS tops. I'm pretty sure I've seen him at Dolly's before. So yeah, he was I was super scared of that deck. Like, it's funny, game 3, even though I sided going second because it's like I just have back row cards, that those are like the only cards I can side against that deck. He actually made me go first, and I actually preferred that. To be honest with you, I was telling him I personally
really?
think that's a mistake because, and yes, I get it. I cited for going second, but it's like I would much rather go first against that deck in a way.
Mhm.
And well, I guess maybe I shouldn't say that. Like I did intentionally go second after I lost game one, but I think it maybe I should frame it as I don't mind going first. It might actually sometimes it just ends up being better. So I set up like Dragoon, Infinity. I don't know what else I had, but yeah, it was the game three I think didn't last too long. I just think I don't think he was able to play through multiple interruptions. Whereas game one, he had like the nuttiest hand. He had like Red Eyes Fusion, like the field spell, Hidden City, and then so you have the Guru, but he also had 3 hand traps. It was like holy, like I just cannot. I had a lot of extenders. Like if he had just like one less hand trap, I would have like broken everything, but it was just like too much. But I would say that one I was very scared of, but fortunately I came out on top. And so yeah, I actually started out 6-0. It was crazy. I didn't, and which is good because the moment you got 6 wins, you actually secured day 2, which at that point I was like, oh yeah, I'm good here. And then yeah, I think so I finished day 1 7-1. Right. So my loss was to that Orcus Mech Knight player. And then day 2 was like I said, I started with a tie and then the 2 wins. And my last 2 matches were actually both against Tri Brigade. They came back to back. And yeah, so fortunately I won, and it was just a surreal moment.
I know you kind of answered this already, but I'm just gonna reiterate this one more time. Were you hoping to like lose the die roll and have your opponents play first for
that is for sure true, because you don't want to reveal, I guess, in a way that you were intentionally trying to go second.
Yes.
Yeah, so it works out, but it's funny. One time against Drytron, I did win the die roll and I chose to go second, and he thought I was playing Sky Strikers, and
yeah,
I'm not sure why. I think he decided to just not play anything at all going first because maybe he thought he shouldn't invest too much against Sky Strikers because I don't know, maybe they'll break the board. I still think he should have tried to do something, but because of that, it was like a lot easier for me to kill him because he just decided not to do anything because he thought I was playing Sky Strikers.
Yeah.
So that's where like it kind of worked out. Another example, I mean, this doesn't have to do with the die roll, but in terms of people thinking I was playing something else, was that I played Cyber Emergency and he thought I was playing Drytron. So he shotgun IP, and he was playing Drytron. He shotgun IP and then he went into Appaloosa.
Yep.
He should have just waited until I searched something. But so seeing that, I'm like, you know what? I'm actually just going to search the original Cyber Dragon now. And then I did that, and I just got rid of the Appaloosa. And that really changed things because the IP was actually, if he went into Unicorn, it would have been very problematic for me. Yep. And he just made things easier because he thought I was playing different deck. So that was kind of funny that it worked out.
Oh my god! Like I have like one friend in my local who always plays who plays Cyber Dragon like, all the time. Like it's kind of like you in a sense, where always plays it. So I'm always anticipating like whatever I throw in the whatever's in my extra monster zone. It's like, okay, that's gonna be taken away or whatever. Or I'm probably not gonna make the initial play I'm gonna want to. Like I'm going to assume it's gonna die. And I also played against Cyber Dragons on the Saturday tournament. It's like okay, that card is just gonna die or whatever. So I'll just like make Unicorn and just try to disrupt it as much as I can. So like, yeah, I'm not gonna throw an Appaloosa out against a Cyber Dragon player because that's such a bad thing to do. And I remember I had the same philosophy as you of a going second deck. Like I wanted to lose every single die roll. I remember the last regional I topped was, I believe it was in 2019, and I was running True Draco Invoked, or maybe it was 2018. I was running True Draco Invoked, and I was losing so many die rolls during that time, and I decided, you know what? Let's just steer into the skid here. Let's hope that I lose every single die roll and just go second the whole time, because True Draco has a lot of utility with their cards like going second, because you have like the Disciples, the Apocalypse that can pop cards on your opponent's turn when you tribute it. So there's so much utility in doing that. So that's why I'm like, okay, let's let them go second. And that's what like pendulums were really prevalent then. And I think I played a little bit of dinos there, but like, but it was and other True Draco, like the Yamato Iwato decks, like they like the Floodgate ones. So they like going first because they can set up the floodgates. But I found that the Invoked engine going with True Draco had a better going second matchup, which is what I did. And then I also made like triple evenly matched too to also like supplement that, which is kind of what you did with like the double, like the triple droplet and the double lightning storm.
Yeah, and I mean it depends on the format because, for example, when dinos were really popular, then you have this going second deck as well. And dinos, I definitely want to win the dino. Sky Strikers is, like I said earlier, it's okay because they're not going to kill me if I go
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
But yeah, it sort of depends. So right now, like there's definitely Sky Strikers really popular online. So I am finding that, oh, I'm being forced to go first. Like they're probably playing Sky Strikers. And Mech Knight too. And it gets like hard, right? Because it's like, oh, if you think your opponent's playing Mech Knight, you don't want to play anything. Like you don't want to set anything. But then it's like,
Yeah.
oh, they play dinos. Oh, geez, like they're just gonna kill me now. So yeah, it's kind of a mind game. And I think when you play going second decks, the other thing you have to account for is your opponent going to make you go first or second post side. And one trend I have been noticing is that I just find the tier 1 decks nowadays are just so good going first. There's no reason for them to force a going second deck to go first. It's just better for them to just keep going first. And that was a little different. For example, when Salamangreat was tier 1, that was a more sort of like a balance deck that could definitely go second, right? And I found in that kind of format, they definitely made me go first a lot. But then if you have a deck like, for example, like Infernoble in its prime, like why would you go second? Like you might as well just keep going first because you're gonna have a good time. You're gonna rip their cards, and they're not even gonna be able to play. So yeah, I do notice that I don't really have to think about that. It's like they're probably just gonna make me go first, and especially now with release of Dragoon, it's like I have some plays now going first if they were to force me. And if you look at my list, if I don't even know what they were playing after game 1 because they just scooped, basically the only going second cards are the Lightning Storms. Like the Droplets are quick play, Imperm that can also be set. It's like I would then basically put an Imperial Order in like Cosmic Cyclone.
Yeah.
Take out the 2 Lightning Storms. That way, if I do go first, I can play those. And even if I go second, which did happen, and I drew I drew the Imperial Order against Dogmatic and Invoke Shaddoll, and it's still good, right? Like it's such a blowout card. Like he played like Shaddoll Fusion, and I'm like, okay, Imperial Order, and then he had to scoop. So it's just like a blowout card. I do hope that card gets banned again, but yeah, that was sort of the mindset.
Yep. And again, when we look at your deck list, it's funny because you also played Dragoon as well, which is something I didn't really see in a whole lot of Cyber Dragon builds. Like, did you find that you drew the Dark Magician and the Red Eyes, or even the Fusion card a lot during that tournament?
I would say like your typical amount. Like it wasn't surprising. Like I said in my first run, I literally drew it every single time. But yeah, I it was just like I would say like the quote unquote standard amount you would have expected to see, and because you are playing 3, like there's 3 cards in that package.
Yeah,
and it's weird. And so first off, from your earlier point, Cyber Giants actually do play Dragoon quite a lot. I mean, a lot of people they don't want to, and that's understandable, right? Like a lot of people kind of want to play it quote unquote pure, and I've tried that as well. Honestly, it's good, but from a competitive standpoint, the reason why I decided to play it was against a deck like Drytron. I decided the best option is just to intentionally go first, and so Dragoon was very important. And so yeah, 3 cards in the package. The downside with the Red Eyes and Dark Magician, those are like the true bricks because they don't do anything, and you have to keep it in your hand for it to be live. So I can't just like pitch it off to try a special Naxer. Red Eyes Fusion, for us, hard drawing it is usually not good because that means we can't OTK as easily because Dragoon Pop and Burn is very nice. But at the same time, against something like a back row heavy deck, that actually can be quite good because, okay, if they have something like that targets or something that pops, it's like you're safe now. So it's like a balance. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes when I hard draw Red Eyes Fusion, I just like don't even play it at all, and I just try to go the traditional OTK route. And so yeah, it really depends on the situation. And one thing is, it obviously feels bad when you draw one of those cards, right?
Yeah, really
but
does.
At the same time, one thing I realized was, Cyber Giants can like brick anyways, even if you don't play the package. And with the Red Eyes package, at the very least, that just means you just have to get to Anaconda and you can at least bring out Dragoon. And that can make a very big difference, I found, in a tournament. And because sometimes you just don't you have all these like great going second cards, like you might like Droplet, Lightning Storm, and like whatever, but the only play you have is just like core, in which case it can at least get you to Dragoon, and that might actually just be enough. And that's why I decided to play it. Yes, there are limitations, but I think the positives were just too good not to do it.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And I remember like kind of going to what you said, like against like a bunch of backward decks where I would play Phantom Knights that had Dragoon in it, and if I hard drew Red Ass Fusion, I would just play it on the spot. Or if I had, like, I also had Phantasmi because I had a bunch of cards that I wanted to put back in the deck that I didn't want. Like, for example, I had like I didn't want to draw Graph, I didn't want to draw Seer, and of course I didn't want to draw the Dragoon package, so I would play Phantasmi to help kind of like be the easy card to throw back. But there have been times where I'm like, nope, I'm not going to send this. I'm going to send a different card back because I want to shotgun that Red Eyes Fusion, because against like 5 back row, it's a little bit more safe to play that Red Eyes Fusion rather than just doing your combo, because it's more likely to be disrupted. And then odds are they don't have much to be able to stop you anyway after that. And then the next turn after, you can make your push because you have that security with Dragoon. That was my thought process.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of weird for Cyber Dragons because it's like either, okay, do you choose to try to go for the OTK, or do you try to kind of play like control with Dragoon first and like slowly poke, right? Because the downside is like if it gets ashed, then it's like, oh man, that really screws you. But but I think it brings a nice little balance. And like I said, the pop and burn, because we're going second deck, that comes a lot more for us, because that's just how we started out. And it's like huge, especially when we have something like Jizakuru, like that's like 3,300, right? And so essentially our just typical sort of quote unquote end board would be like Dragoon and Infinity with like the Anaconda, which essentially means if your opponent just has two monsters that add up to 2,000, like they're dead. Or if they have an empty board, you bring out Rampage instead, and then you attack 3 times with that, and then with another with Infinity for game. So Dragoon really does bring a good aspect to being out the OTK. But if it does get banned, I mean, I just need Anaconda. We play that well before Dragoon because it sends Overload Fusion. We really do need Anaconda. I can't imagine going back to days where Anaconda was not around. I just can't believe I played the deck before the card was released.
Yeah, and the Cyber Dragons actually was a good call in one sense, where you basically have 4 outs or like you have several outs actually to the Dragoon, because first of all, they're not going to negate Cyber Emergency, because you can just pitch it back and then play it again, of course. So essentially that gives you 3 extra outs to it because you search the Kaiju, because it searches that. I'm sure. No, it's a repair plan that searches. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, never mind.
Kaiju, but that means you also need a Cyber Dragon Engrave. But there's definitely certain outs to Dragoon.
Yeah.
I mean, Kaiju, even like if you bait out one negate, like if you can go into Seeger, then it just becomes 4,200. You can attack over it.
Yeah.
So things like that. And I also play the droplet, but I don't really like, in terms of Dragoon against my YCS opponents, obviously the Subterra one of the Drytron lists I played did bring out Dragoon, which I happen to have the Kaiju in hand. I don't think I played against Dragoon that much actually, which is good. Like it's quite hard to out, right? Like I mean, we have outs, but it's like if you don't draw it, hard draw it, it's like, oh no. It's hard.
Yeah. It's basically the consistency issue that goes along with running that package, because there's so many times where I've drawn Dark Magician, Red Eyes, and the Fusion itself, where I don't have like natural means of being able to like have an additional use for it in some way, shape, or form. Like I've fodder to like put it back in my deck, like Phantasma or something like that. So I don't even have like any discard fodder at all for that matter. So yeah, it really is a consistency issue on people deciding whether or not to run Dragoon. But even Drytrons are playing it now. It's like not all of them, but some of them are. So it's really starting to be out there, kind of showing off like its power in this format.
Yeah, and I had no idea Drytron was playing Dragoon until I faced that opponent. And it's funny. Speaking of drawing the Red Eyes package, one time live on Gabe Vargas' stream, I was playing against Ryan Yu, and I drew all 3 cards of the package he had. And I was like, hey Gabe, watch this. And I played Red Eyes Fusion. I like discarded both Dark Magician and Red Eyes, and I'm like, oh my god, the most negative play ever. But it was against Sky Striker, so I'm like, at least it's good against Sky Striker. But the bad news was it was against Ryan Yu, who's like very good. So I was like, okay, well, it was funny.
Would there be any changes you would make to the Cyber Dragon deck moving forward?
Well, I'll mention it in my profile. As of right now, the only thing I would have changed was just like take out that second Mega Fleet and just put back the Mecha Ball. It just like didn't really come up. And realistically speaking, I'm just banishing it for Pot of Prosperity anyways. But I think for now, like I find most of my lists have been like the bulk of it has been quite standard. If there are people that's been following my profiles over time, And so, yeah, like the cyber dragon ratio, that pretty much never changes really. And then it's just a matter of like, okay, which hand traps do I need to play? Like right now, I'm playing just 6 hand traps. I've always preferred the board breaking route, but
Yeah.
sometimes you have no choice but to play like 12 hand traps, like an Infernoble format.
Mhm.
So yeah, but right now I'm enjoying it that it's not like that anymore. And same with
Mhm.
like something like VFT where you can't play at all. But Drytron, I admit, is definitely very hard going second against because anything on the board, like even like ultimateness, like there's like cards like Dark Ruler, there's Kaijus, but what's hard is the orange heralds in hand because there's like no cards that you can play that will stop something from activating your opponent's hand, right? Like you have call by to stop the Eva, but
Mhm.
that means they still resolved Orange Herald once. And when they like have multiple orange heralds, it's like, how do you stop that, right? Like you just have to eat it basically.
Yeah.
And because it's negate and destroy, that's quite problematic for cyber dragons. For example, like machine dupe, you need to have that body on board, and it's like very hard to play against through multiple of that after you already invested resources to negate like the herald or like the IP. So I felt like you just have to like load up on hand traps. Like I don't even like put Pot of Prosperity. Like I just like take those out because there's no point of drawing Pot of Prosperity. Like they'll just negate it with Herald. So
Yeah.
you want to have like the hand traps. And so yeah, I would say against Drytron, I think I typically drew probably 2. I mean, I put in so many, realistically speaking, but yeah,
Yeah.
I went to 2, definitely at least 1, and then at least in terms of the matches or in the games that I won.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
yeah, that was fortunate. But I definitely fear Drytron.
yeah. Well, as a Drytron player, anytime my Mu Beta Fafnir got hit with an impermanence or a Veiler, I found myself in doing very subpar moves afterwards.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, I really like. I'm glad it came back to popularity after like pretty much seeing like zero play when like VFD and or virtual world and stuff was a tier 1. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think Imperm's really good. And the underrated part is actually negating the floodgates after you set for a turn.
Yeah.
I mean, like because like once like Imperial Order resolves, it's like for just like decks in general, it's like hard to out that, right? Because it's like, okay, well, all the backward removable spells that can't work. Even Red Reboot, it's like they already activated, you can't get rid of it. So
Yeah.
like Cyber Dragons, we can technically go into like Anaconda and bring out Rampage and pop the order, but it's probably going to be hard because they probably have something more than order. So yeah.
Oh boy! Well, I'm glad that you were able to, top the YCS. Add some Canadian mix into it, and have another, Canadian on that list moving forward. And eventually, I hope that once we get a little more semblance, at least in Ontario, of course, we can actually, maybe have a match or two, like in real life, because like things are starting to open up back up a little bit. It's funny how you say that you've been playing more in the pandemic rather than out of the pandemic, which I find is kind of funny. But then again, we've kind of done that thing with our channels too. Our channels have been more active like in the pandemic than it has been out of the pandemic too. So it'll be interesting to see how your channel and my channel will be moving forward once like things start to open up a little bit more, and kind of see how our channels will progress and evolve as we go along.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, man. So again, congratulations on the top that you did there a couple weeks ago, and thank you for coming on to my podcast. I really had a great time with you, talking, data and statistics, because that's like a big thing that I love to do, especially when I do sports broadcasting. So it was nice to speak a lot of this, the kind of the more like nerdier geek talk kind of thing. So I really enjoyed that part of the conversation with you.
Yeah, Sam, thanks for having me. It's been great.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Any shout outs you want to give before we head on out?
I guess just shout out to my home channel, HakunaMyData, and that's about it.
All right, man. Thank you so much for coming on. That is HakunaMyData, who is on my podcast today to start off season 3. Go check him out. He's got a lot of really wonderful and informative content on his channel. Great stuff if you really want to get down to the nitty gritty of analyzing a lot of decks, meta, and whatnot. Again, thank you so much for coming on my podcast, man. I really appreciate you being on, and hopefully we can get ourselves a match soon once we get some semblance back in the province.
Yep, I'm sure we will.
All right, thank you. Have yourself a wonderful night.
You too.